Hey folks, welcome to the Mediocre cover band guitar guy. So a couple weeks ago I said I was hanging it up, but since then something terrible has happened. We lost Mr. Eddie Van Halen this past week. And that was a big loss in music, and you got that camp that always bash Eddie's playing and say it was just all flash and smoke and mirrors, and I like to call it theatrical, which is pretty much what it should be if you're looking at a rock and roll show. You don't want to be bored to death by anything. Hey, so that was my attempt at some Van Halen there. Like I said, just rolled out of bed there a little bit ago. Haven't had enough coffee in me, but so thought I'd just shoot one today about my thoughts on Eddie Van Halen and what he meant kind of to me and my musical lack of development or development, whatever. And because I'm kind of weird with guitar players. I got two camps of players that I go by, and I got my guitar influences and I got my guitar heroes. And there is a difference. For me, like an influence that made me want to pick up a guitar in the first place and play, and even today when I hear their stuff, like Jimi Hendrix is an influence. When I first heard Jimi Hendrix, my mind was just, it was blown. Like, how was he doing all this stuff? Jimmy Page was the same thing. The Zeppelin songs, the riffs, there's like riff after riff after riff. Malcolm Young, just for that thick, gritchy goodness that he had. Always loved his playing. And of course, Dave Murray from Iron Maiden is another guy. All that legato and cool playing. Just a great guitar player. So that would be, my list of influences. And then I have other guys that are guitar heroes, like Tracy Guns from LA Guns, because I'm a huge 80s metalish hard rock fan. Don Felder from the Eagles, just because he's cool. His playing is always great, and his solos and everything he does it's just tasty. Nuno Betancourt from Extreme, I always thought he was really cool. Zakk Wylde, just for those pinch harmonics. Stevie Vai, that's another guy. Back in the 80s also, for a lot of you kids, White Lions guitar player Vito Bratta was amazing. Short-lived career, still alive, just hasn't done anything in a few years. And then there's Eddie Van Halen, and he falls in both camps for me. As an influence and as a hero, just his playing was off the charts, and not just his lead stuff. I always liked his overall guitar tone. His rhythm playing was probably harder than like 90% of the guitar players at the time as their leads, because it was all over the place. It was never ever synchromatic. It was always different every time around. And once again, you had a lot of players, and I read an interview with Rudy Sarzo from Quiet Riot, and he was mentioning how Randy Rhoads was not a fan of Eddie Van Halen. and couldn't understand why Eddie Van Halen was getting the accolades in the 70s when they were all on the club scene together, because he said it was all smoke and mirrors, and once again, theatrics. And that's what makes rock and roll. That Kiss are not the greatest musicians in the world. They bought ringers in to record their records, but it was the spectacle. And Eddie Van Halen had all of it. He had the spectacle, and he had the talent and the virtuosity. I don't even know how to pronounce that fucking word, so I'm sorry. And he just had the technical ability to pull it all off into one thing and wrote great songs. For me, Van Halen, you also have those guys that are like, oh, the David Lee Roth years were the best years, or the Sammy Hagar years were the best years. I liked all the Van Halen. I liked both eras. I didn't like the Gary Cherone so much, because I don't know what they were trying to do then. I think we were into grunge and alternative rock when that came about, and Van Halen were trying to find their, trying to find their place in music, because for years and years and years and years, they'd been such a footnote in musical history that I guess trying to keep an identity was hard in those times. But I love both Sammy Hagar and David Lee Roth years, basically because Eddie Van Halen was there, and that's what it was about for me, and his playing. And for a lot of guys, their first taste of Van Halen came with that first record and Eruption, and their whole Hearing You Really Got Me and Running with the Devil and all those tunes, and Jamie's Crime. But mine actually, because I have an older sister who had a really big record collection. My first go at Van Halen was with when they did 1984. I was probably about 12 years old, I guess, when that came out, 11 or 12. And I heard Jump, and I thought, this is pop, but it's pretty good. But I heard Drop Dead Legs, and I heard, which I attempted earlier very poorly in my head. But when I heard that, I thought that was one of the most incredible things I'd ever heard in my life. I still don't know what the fuck the song is about. David Lee Roth wrote some weird lyrics. It's like he was reading the back of a cereal box and just wrote it on paper, and that's what he sang about. But it was about the riffage. One of the things about Eddie Van Halen, for all of his greatness as well, is that, and I've read a shit ton of stuff on Van Halen, when back in the 80s, because I had Guitar World, Guitar Player, and all these magazines kicking around since I can remember. I still got probably 1,000 used ones up in they'd be used obviously, but I've got 1,000 old guitar magazines up in the attic up there now, stored away. But I read a lot of everything that Van Halen ever did back through the 80s and early 90s. And one thing he was never afraid of in the old days was the mistake. And he left mistakes on records and sacrificed it and left it there if the overall performance was great. It wasn't about him wowing people. It was about him getting, I guess, kind of the atmosphere, the attitude, and capturing the performance, all on, and the energy to tape. And that was evident in Pretty Woman when he botched a couple things in the intro, apparently. And apparently there was a mistake in Ain't Talking About Love that ended up staying on there and making that riff kind of iconic as well. But that was the first time I heard Van Halen, and then a friend of mine came over with a cassette of the first record and put it on, and I was like, wow, this sounds like nothing I've ever heard before. And through that, then I started getting, Van Halen. I bought the record myself, then I got Van Halen 2, and I was like, yeah, it's okay. I didn't like it as much as the first one. Fair Warning was a pretty good album. Women and Children First was a pretty cool record as well. I also did not like Diver Down. I didn't like the covers. I gotta agree with Eddie on that one. And then they did 1984, and everything just even got bigger for those guys, and then David Lee Roth quit. I remember I wasn't fussed when they did 5150, man. When I heard Why Can't This Be Love, I was like, I'm not sure if I like this or not. But back in the good old days at Columbia House, when you could get 3,000 records for 1 cent, I ended up getting it. And I listened to that album about 1 million times front to back, and I liked it. After a while, it grew on me. And then I discovered other music and sort of stepped away from new Van Halen music. I think, For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge was the last Van Halen album I bought. And I had OU81 too, because I thought the name was cool. But going back to that, I like both camps. I didn't have like one that was a favorite because I like bits and pieces of everything, all because Eddie was involved in it. So, like I said, that's where my love of Eddie Van Halen came from and what it meant to me. Not so much that I wanted to be able to do all the shreddy technical stuff because I can't. I'm not going to sit here and go, "Oh, I can do it. I just don't want to." I can't. There's a lot of things I'm limited to, and tapping is one of them. Tapping well, anyway. And but Eddie Van Halen, by all accounts and everything I've read on him this week since his passing, everybody has had a lot of really positive things to say about him, and that's cool. When you can leave that legacy besides the musical aspect of it behind, is that people say, well, you know what, he was a great guy to boot, and it just makes your memories and your perspective of that person a lot better, and makes them, whether he or she, more iconic in my mind. And Steve Vai, I read a story by him, and I didn't realize that they were as tight as they were, but was saying that he met Eddie Van Halen back when he was playing with Frank Zappa, and gave Eddie Van Halen Frank Zappa's phone number. And a couple days later, he figured that was it, and whatever. And a couple days later, he got a call from Frank Zappa. He's like, "Hey, Ed Van Halen's here. Do you want to come and hang out and play some guitar?" And he said they spent the whole day listening to music and playing guitar and jamming, which is cool. And they had a little bit of a Eddie stayed away from him, obviously, when he did the Skyscraper and Eat 'em and Smile albums with David Lee Roth. But after the day that he left the band, he said he got a phone call from Eddie. He doesn't even know how Eddie got his number, and they remain close friends ever since. So, long live Eddie Van Halen. It definitely was a big loss for the music community. There's never going to be another one. For me, it's right there with Jimi Hendrix. You're not going to replace Hendrix, and people rag on music anyway if they don't like it or it's not something they're into. But Eddie Van Halen and everything that he's getting, all these accolades and his passing, and all the accolades he got while he was alive, he deserved them. Whether you like Van Halen or not, he wrote some iconic riffs that'll be around forever. Van Halen will be on classic rock radio stations as long as there's classic rock radio stations. And people are going to know who he is. Anybody who's sussing out kids that are learning new music after a while, no matter what you're listening to, they always stumble back to Eddie Van Halen and Van Halen, no matter who they are, what they're playing. All these guys that play technically well, they always stumble right back into that type of playing and their music in general. So anyway, I ended these things off a couple weeks ago. I'm going to be honest, I just didn't think anybody was interested. And it does take a bit of time to record these things because we got like kids running around everywhere. We're working all the time. We're back to gigging a little bit now, and that takes up time because you got to learn new songs. You just can't play a wagon wheel all friggin' day long. So I might pop another one up here and there. It's not going to be an every week thing. Just when I get a chance, because I got a couple more things I need. Some people aren't listening, so I got to beat it into their heads for some reason. But I got things to say other than ranting. There are some things that, because the musical landscape is changing in Newfoundland, and what we were doing 10 years ago is not being done now, and downsizing is a thing. So I got some things to talk about that, and those opportunities, those gigs and stuff. Like I said, I'm probably not going to be able to get at it every week. If I can, I will. I'd also like to thank everybody who reached out to me after I shot my last one. The kind words that were left on the comments on my last video on Facebook. Appreciated those. I also received a few kind words in person from some people who said that they didn't even think, and one person in particular, I'm not mentioning names, who's been gigging longer than I've been alive, said there were a few things that I hit on that didn't realize before. So I might shoot a couple more of these down the road. I'll try to be a little bit better with the playing, a little bit less slop. Maybe I'll have to write some things out and sort of know what I'm doing before I start, instead of saying what am I going to do and then just start playing. I'm sure it's funny to somebody, It's funny to me when I watch them back, because I only watch like the first 5 minutes of it. As soon as I start talking, I give it up. But I'm going to end it by saying the same shit that I would say before. Support, support, support. You got to get out there and watch it and keep it going. Venues are struggling too, and because they're not allowed to have hordes of people in them anymore. So get out and watch live music and watch the live streams. My 3 go-tos, Don Brenton does the Saturday Night Cure. Sometimes it's the Saturday Night Cure on a Sunday night, which is good because if you're really drunk on Saturday night and you're out at the bar, you can nurse your hangover and be soothed on Sunday night. So it's all good. Tony's doing Club Teabag. Tony Thompson, that is. He's out to Tolls doing karaoke all the time on Fridays and Saturdays. Every now and then his band mainline plays. Keep an eye out at that over at Tolls. Ken Tizard's still doing Whiskey Wednesdays. Takes requests. Well, they all do, but request a song. It's pretty fun when you get to hear him play something, especially if you know it's a song you requested that drives him nuts to play it. It's even better, because they do it to me all the time when they come out and see us play. So go out to those bars. A lot of bars are still promoting live music and are trying. I also issued an apology to the Irish people, the Irish bands, on my last thing. So if I'm coming back, I'm going to take my apology back. I was just trying to be nice, and I didn't mean it. So, and I'm going to explain to you now before I go. My problem is not with the musicians in the Irish bands, because, man, some of these guys are monster players. To quote Warren Haynes from Government Mule and the Allman Brothers Band, man, those guys are motherfuckers. But my problem comes with people who book bands and artists and performers. And the reason being, a long time ago, I said to a guy who was promoting, he was throwing off a show, I said, you always have an Irish band every year. Every single year, it's Irish. You should mix it up and bring something different in. And he said, well, Craig, I can't bring in a cover band. And I thought to myself, what the ever living fuck is he talking about? Like, who do you think wrote Dirty Old Town? Right, Masterless Men didn't. Irish Descendants didn't. So this was written by an Irish person who lives in Ireland. Ireland is an actual country that has actual Irish people in it. It's the same thing when I was out a while ago and somebody wanted to hear that Navigators tune, Hell in a Basement. They didn't write it. They do an awesome job of covering it, no doubt, and they put a good spin on it because they're talented and they're great players. But they didn't write it, so they're playing a cover. So you need to kind of get that where I'm coming from. They're cover artists, same as we are. We're just doing a different genre of music, no different if it was a country band doing all country covers. It's not specialty, it's still covers. It's still great, don't get me wrong, it's awesome, and I'd pay to go see it, but it's covers. Also this month, we have the Music NL sponsoring Rocktober. So every Friday, for 5 Fridays, they're promoting rock. I mean, it's called Rocktober, right? So if it's Rocktober, shouldn't you have some rock and maybe or roll bands playing? Now I'm confused because Long McQuaid also has Rocktober, where you can buy like Les Pauls and rock and roll instruments. Anyway, guys, it's all about support. Go down and see anybody who's playing. Just don't expect to see any rock and roll at Rocktober.